Okay, so this is going to be a step-by-step video on how I did my basement waterproofing. So I went kind of above and beyond, I think, what normal people might do, but I did a lot of research, and this is kind of what I came up with at the time. So I wanted it to be the Cadillac of foundation waterproofing. So the steps are basically, first I ground off the entire surface, and I wanted it to be nice and smooth. And I'll also take off all the corners, make sure the corners were kind of rounded so I could wrap the waterproofing up and over the top of the wall. After I grounded, I used some CementALL, and I put it down on the bottom base of where the wall hits the footing. And I filled in about a ½ inch worth of material in the corner and then feathered it down to nothing so that water will flow down and out even if the waterproofing failed. And then next I went in and filled in all the holes that were left from all the tie rod or the snap ties, and let that dry. And I wiped it with a sponge too to make it nice and smooth with the wall. Here I'm applying Aquatac Primer, which is a required primer if you're applying this Blueskin to concrete. So I just put a thin coat on, just make sure you cover everything, and it's a water-based product, so it's not too bad to work with. And right here, the arrow there was pointing at a caulk bead that I ran in the corner, and that's following the directions of Blueskin. You put a big bead of caulk in the corner to take up any air gap that'll form. I also cut a bunch of strips that were about 12 inches wide, and I put them on the very bottom on the top of the footing so that I would have double the material on the bottom. So I ended up applying this Blueskin WP 200, and as long as you apply it vertically like this, then you can do it by yourself. And there you see me cutting out around the foundation vent, and it's really nothing special. I just kind of trimmed it right around the edge. And then as I'm putting on each piece, I'm rolling it also. I'm going kind of fast, so it's hard to see, but I'm using a little J roller. And it's probably only like 4 inches wide, but I ended up getting a bigger one later on, but really either or worked fine. And so it was a tedious task and took a long time, and I had to work late into the night to try to beat the framers because they wanted to put down their sill plates. But it wasn't too bad. So here on the other side of the building, you can see after I put up the Blueskin, I caulk all the edges that aren't the factory edges. But basically run a bead and then trowel it with a putty knife. You can see in the center there of the wall there's 2 penetrations coming out. So I had caulked around them, then I cut more patches and put the patches over it and caulk that. And here we're laying out all the Dimples in membrane that protects the Blueskin. And so I just cut the big pieces out first and rolled them up and then brought them down and installed them. So this Dimples in mat, basically, it's like a drainage mat. It gets nailed to the wall. So at first I was just nailing it with hand bangers, just masonry nails, and it's pretty tough to do that. I don't recommend it. Later I went and bought a ram set concrete nailer, and that works a lot better. I wish I would have gotten that right off the bat. But so this Dimples in mat, you're able to order offline, and you can get it in all kinds of widths and lengths, and it's actually pretty cheap. And so I just ran it all the way down and over the footing so that water could go all the way down. And at the very bottom of the footing I have a French drain, and there I just laid down some fabric. So I laid down the fabric, and then I have a French drain that goes all the way around the house, and there's several steps in the foundation, so I put clean outs at all the steps, and I put a clean out at the very top too. And that way, if they ever got plugged with sediment, then at least you had a chance of flushing that stuff out. So, and I used perforated 4-inch PVC pipe with the holes facing down. I believe I did I think I wrapped the pipe too with drain sock, which according to some YouTube videos may or may not have been a good idea. Oh, and there I just did a penetration on that side of the house, and so on top of all the taping and caulking I did underneath the drainage board, I did another patch on top. And then there I just taped the top edge of the drainage board to keep the dirt out, or the rock. And I backfilled with drain rock, or around, it's decent sized drain rock, all round, and I put a lot in there, just filled it all up. And so I kind of raked it level with with a bit of a slope away from the house, and then I covered it with more fabric. And here I'm actually, that's where I accidentally tore the drain board with the tractor on accident. It happens. So then I lay fabric on top of that to keep the soil out of the rock, and then just backfill and compact it. Oh, and speaking of fasteners on the drain board, now it told me to put a lot more than I did, and here I'm cutting some of them off, and I can see why, because it wanted to tear, and I was going real careful when I was backfilling, but you might want to put it just a few more just to be safe. Maybe follow the directions. And finally, once I figured out where the soil level would be, I trimmed off the drainage board and I capped it with their drainage cap. I'm sure there's a better name. But it just gets nailed on with those ramset concrete nails. And if you're interested, eventually I did a stucco coat that covered up the rest of the blueskin. So that's a rundown of all the steps involved in my basement waterproofing. It's just based on the research I had available to me at the time, and so far so good. I haven't seen any signs of moisture inside at all, and it's been a couple years, so I think it's going to do all right. So, and I should mention that when I was doing my research, I saw ways that people had sprayed. I saw a way that people had tried where they would spray the blueskin or a similar peel and stick with a contact cement, just like a glue, and then glue a Dimples out membrane to it. And I'm sure that would work pretty well. That's pretty appealing that you wouldn't have to put any fasteners through your peel and stick. But being I was just installing it myself, I just figured that it would be easiest to go with the Dimples in and not have to worry about the glue not setting up, or having to breathe in all the glue anyways. That stuff's pretty nasty. And just, it's hard to tension it right if you're only using glue, and I found that putting in a nail or two and pulling it tight seemed to work pretty well. But anyways, I like the idea of being able to glue it if I just didn't want to tackle that. Anyways, that's my final thought on my foundation effort for now, I guess. When I tackle the sawmill, I kind of waterproof it differently, and so I'm going to keep trying different things until I find what I like best, but I think I did all right with the way I did this.